On August 27th, the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, attacked facilities belonging to Russia's nuclear triad. Something is burning. Factories that produce Topol and Yar's intercontinental nuclear ballistic missiles have been blown up. What a life! Boom bada boom. What is that? Russia's nuclear triad is under attack. The second phase of the SBU's special operation continued. Attacks on Russia's northern and Pacific fleets, attacks on nuclear submarines, the explosion of the Crimean bridge, and strikes on airfields with strategic nuclear aviation. A series of explosions in Crimea. There's panic and evacuation there. Oh my God.
What's going on? Oh wow, just look at that truly amazing thing right there.
Friends, this very morning started for all of us with the significant news about an emergency incident that regrettably happened on the Crimean bridge.
Holy shit. Damn. That's it, we're done.
Emergency situation on the Crimean bridge. As a result of the incident, car traffic on the Crimean bridge has been stopped.
We've been standing here since 4:25 in the morning.
Around 5 o'clock, or maybe closer to 6, they turned us around and sent everyone home to rest.
We ask all guests and residents of Crimea to use the land corridor through the new regions of the Russian Federation.
We'll discuss all of this today with Dmitry Gordon, as usual, right now. There it goes again. Look.
Oil depot.
This is an oil depot, a large storage facility.
Breaking news, friends. It's August 27th, and there's just an explosion of news. Explosions in St. Petersburg. The port of Ust-Luga is on fire, a key oil artery of Russia. Explosions at the Kursk nuclear power plant. And it was actually the Russians themselves who blew it up. The transformer unit is on fire. Residents heard a series of blasts. Moscow and St. Petersburg are paralyzed. Airports are closed. Railways have been blown up. Oil pipelines are burning. And most importantly, just now, the Ryazan Moscow oil pipeline was blown up. A massive explosion in the Ryazan region on the main oil pipeline. Crimea is on fire. We are attacking military bases, key railway logistics hubs, and bridges. We'll discuss all of this with the one and only Dmitry Gordon. Dmitry Ilyich, welcome.
Hello, Dasha, and greetings to all our wonderful viewers.
Dmitry Ilyich, as you always say, I'm in a good mood. Now, when there are explosions in St. Petersburg, we're blowing up oil pipelines. We've practically blown up all the oil refineries in the European part of Russia. And now the port of Ust-Luga is on fire. What do you think about that?
Well, do you know who's behind all this? It's Valery Mlodzy. He's cut the wires 1,000 times.
Oh my God! Only in our program you and I understand who did this?
Of course, it's all Valery Mlodzy. So, we should thank him for that, of course.
I've cut the wires 1,000 times. That's right, isn't it? I take it that's what he's talking about.
Listen, you even hit the notes, I have to say. That's
not like some people, not like some singers.
not like me, yeah. So, Dasha, it is quite clear that things are definitely happening and progressing significantly. But you see, the very well-informed people who consistently give me highly valuable inside information, those who truly know the intricate situation from the very deepest inside in various different countries around the globe, are currently divided into two distinct and opposing camps. It's actually very interesting. But some say the war is ending and will be over soon. And now, by the way, today the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, said that it's clear to everyone that the war is already ending and will be over soon, right? There you go. And yes, they say that the main issue is the question of guarantees that Western countries will provide to Ukraine, military guarantees, and that Russia will also have to agree to them. That's it. And then there are technical issues which will be resolved quickly. Others, on the contrary, say that nothing will be resolved quickly. Russia wants to keep fighting. Or rather, Putin wants to keep fighting, because for him, war is a way to continue his rule. And continuing his rule means continuing his life. That is, without war, he probably won't be able to keep Russia under control, to keep it in check, to put it mildly. That's it. And they say, there's no sign of the war ending. But how are the territorial issues supposed to be resolved? That's what they say. But how? All right, security guarantees. Fine. But what about the territorial issues? Putin says, let Ukraine withdraw from Donbass, and then supposedly we're ready. But tell me, who can withdraw? How does that mechanism work? I'm just asking, what is the mechanism? We will never leave Donbass, and the president will never give such an order. That would be unconstitutional and illegal. And whoever gives such an order, no matter who they are, will be judged, either now or later. The president will not give such an order. The constitution is against it. How can you just take and give away your own territory? And there are a lot of territories there. And not only that, it's very well fortified. Let them try to capture it. It would take them years. And if you give it up, it opens the way to both the Dnipropetrovsk and Odessa regions. Who would ever agree to that? And this is where the real issue lies. As Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev once said, that's where the real issue lies, as he used to say. This is exactly where the main snag is. So we say, no, let's stick to the line of demarcation. But Putin says, no, withdraw from Donbass. So how exactly do we effectively resolve this complex and pressing issue? That is precisely why I personally think, yes, the particular viewpoint of one specific half, specifically the highly informed and knowledgeable people who confidently assert that the ongoing war is indeed ending and will in fact conclude very soon, certainly seems incredibly tempting and quite appealing to many observers. But I wouldn't dismiss the opinion of the other half, those who say the war is ongoing and will continue, and that we shouldn't let our guard down. They say, and we shouldn't tell viewers that the war is ending, because that's not true. You see what I mean?
Dmitry, well, in our tandem, I'm always the realist. You're always the optimist. So most likely you're on the side of the first group of experts. I've always been...
No.
No? Have you switched to the second group? I'm
torn between them. I wake up on one side and fall asleep on the other.
Dmitry Dmitrievich, yes, there's no shortage of optimism in our program. Dmitry Dmitrievich, but really every evening when I watch Trump make a statement, his latest statement, of course, I always want to find a polite word for it, but I just can't. But the only words I can come up with are not exactly polite. So Trump makes a statement that Ukraine will also get sanctions just like Russia. He'll impose sanctions on Ukraine because Ukraine is strange. It decided to go to war with Russia, but it doesn't realize that Russia is 15 times stronger, and Ukraine has decided that it will win this war. So listening to Trump's logic, you realize that the man has absolutely no understanding of who attacked whom and why Russia is at war, why Ukraine is fighting Russia. In other words, they think that Ukraine decided to start a war against Russia and didn't realize that Russia is a big country. And this is being said by the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. After that statement, well, I don't even know what words could possibly describe Trump's intellectual level. How can there be peace with a president like that?
Dasha, I know that you personally do not particularly like Donald Trump.
That's putting it mildly.
And I also really didn't like him before. But now I really like him. I'll be honest with you, I get a kick out of him. Look, as someone who grew up in show business and achieved great success there, I know the rules of show business very well. He's totally one of us. He's a pure showman. He operates by all the rules of show business and he does it brilliantly. But he has a goal. Look, we don't doubt that he wants to end the war, do we? Right?
I have my doubts, Dmitry Dmitrievich. I doubt that.
Why?
Because he's not doing anything to make it happen. Dmitry, you always tell me and our audience that we should judge by actions. There are no actions. Yes, today's sanctions were officially imposed, secondary tariffs against India. I agree with you. But that's not enough yet.
Excuse me. Let's talk about India and then come back to this, and then we'll return here. India is a friendly country. We know this, with the United States and the United Kingdom. It's one of the most friendly countries. He told them, if you continue to buy oil from the Russians, I will impose sanctions against you. Here are 25% tariffs for you. If you keep doing this, I'll add another 25%. They didn't get the message. They didn't listen to him. They thought he was just fooling around with them, but he actually did it. And as of today, these sanctions have come into effect. And if he wanted to continue the war, if he wanted to keep appeasing the Russians and Putin, then why on earth would he impose sanctions against a close friend and partner, against India? Further, his line of thought, as far as I can understand it, I'm not as much of a genius as Trump, and honestly, not a genius at all. And honestly, there are some questions, but nevertheless.
A giant of thought, both together and separately. So I'll cut you some slack.
I treat myself much more modestly. I'll tell you honestly.
It's you, but I do it differently. In our tandem, you are the giant and the thought. No.
Let me flirt a little. In short, I'm trying to reason on his behalf. He doesn't impose anything against the Chinese. He only says that he'll impose secondary sanctions against anyone who trades with Russia and buys its oil. India and China, first India, then China, are the two largest buyers of Russian oil. This tanker fleet delivers everything, so by their actions, they are fueling the war with Ukraine. Because supporting the Russian economy means supporting the war with Ukraine. So what does he do? He says to China through his actions, look, he tells Xi, look, did you see India? That's our close partner. I didn't hesitate, I imposed them. Now you're meeting with this thug. You're going to have a 4-day meeting with him, with Putin. Putin is coming to Beijing on September 3rd. It's happening very soon.
Yes.
You're meeting with him and settle the issue with him. He actually listens to you, doesn't he? Settle the issue with this jerk. I'm tired of it already. And if you don't settle it, did you see what I did with India? I'll do the same to you. For me, this tactic is perfectly clear, perfectly clear. He's playing a big game. Trump is. I used to be friends with Mikhail Mikhailovich Zhvanetsky. And once Mikhail Mikhailovich told me, he said, I used to work in the theater with Rakin, with Arkady Rakin the Great. Well, Rakin was a huge figure in the Soviet Union, the #1 satirist. He had his own theater. And I used to write for him. But I didn't really behave myself. I behaved badly. Sometimes I drank too much. Sometimes I criticized Rakin. Sometimes I told him how he should work. And he was a very tactful, sensitive person. And I remember we arrived on tour in some city. And we're standing together on a steamboat, standing at the stern. And he points out to me on the pier. He says, see, there's Grigor's group walking over there. He says, they don't work with us anymore. I fired them. And Zhvanetsky says to me, how was I supposed to know that was such a subtle hint? Back at 133 Komsomolskaya in Odessa, nobody talked like that. So he told him, look, you see, I fired them. You're next. Zhvanetsky didn't understand that at the time. He was too young. Trump does the same thing. He says it to Xi, but Xi understands. He says to Xi, look, do you see what I did to them? They wanted to buy Russian oil. They wanted to fuel the war in Ukraine, which I don't like. Don't make his mistake. Modi made a mistake, and Modi wants to meet with Trump. He keeps calling him, but Trump doesn't pick up the phone. Well, how else?
Dmitrievich,
Yes.
your logic. Let's model the situation.
It's absurd, Dash.
Yes. Then let's continue. Let's model the situation. What will happen?
There. What is he doing? What is he doing? He talks to Putin in a friendly way. He says all this, especially for Putin, that the Ukrainians are also to blame and that they shouldn't have gone to war with the country. It's all just stories for Putin. Like, look, I'm above the fray. I criticize them too. You see, even Zelensky. Did you see how I scolded him in the Oval Office? Oh, what a scandal I made. Did you see? So just so you know, I try to be fair, but don't push your luck with me. Well, you should also understand the world. Dasha, according to my logic, what he's got going on with China now, it's clear. And now Putin is going to fly to China, but there are problems there too, Dasha. The Chinese have big problems. So what do we have today? China supports Russia in their war with Ukraine. But China, for all my love of this country's history and its truly remarkable culture, yes, I always call things by their proper names. China is an accomplice of Russia in the war with Ukraine because China helps Russia circumvent sanctions. China supplies Russia with components for armaments, for weapons, for missiles that later end up flying at our heads. China also helps with manpower because there are Chinese fighting on Russia's side, sorry to say. And the SBU showed 2 captured Chinese prisoners whom our guys took captive. Chinese nationals. There's something else China is doing, and it's very important to mention. And then there's that damn North Korea, led by that jerk Kim Jong-un, which is fully supporting Russia, not only with weapons, but also with a huge number of missiles, bullets, shells, and so on, cannons, howitzers. They've also sent thousands of people who fought against Ukraine. North Koreans. And who are the North Koreans? They're just a proxy for China. If it weren't for China, which, to put it simply, is their protector, they'd have starved to death by now. There's no rice, nothing to eat. Of course, China is backing them. And of course, without Xi Jinping's approval, Kim Jong-un wouldn't have made a single move. So all of this, the entire situation, is China's doing. I'm speaking globally here when it comes to arming Russia and its involvement in the ongoing war with Ukraine. Now, things are certainly going to get very interesting because China is currently facing major internal problems. They have significant economic issues, truly serious economic issues. They have critical demographic problems, extremely serious demographic problems, and they have an intensifying internal struggle for leadership within their own system. Because in China, everything is kept under wraps. Even sinologists. I spoke with a very respected person, an expert on China. He said, even for us, it's difficult to understand what's happening inside. It's a very closed society. Everything is run by the Communist Party of China, which has its own Politburo. And Xi Jinping, who is the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, is not the ultimate authority. That is, he's not like Putin in Russia or Kim Jong-un in North Korea. He's a person who has others standing behind him. And those people can be dissatisfied. He has been in power for a long time. He has internal struggles with other factions. We all saw how at the Congress of the Communist Party of China, they approached Hu Jintao, the former president of China. He was just sitting in the presidium not far from Xi Jinping, and they simply came up to Hu Jintao, took him by the arm, and led him out. He turned to Xi Jinping like, what's going on? And he just sat there smiling. You've seen Xi Jinping smile, haven't you? He always chooses, he always smiles, he always has this mask on his face. Not like that, not like that. He's always polite, always smiling, and he just sat there smiling. Then in China, they wrote that Hu Jintao was feeling unwell and was helped out of the hall. But there are people behind Hu Jintao as well. There are people everywhere, and there's a clash of interests there. And according to reports from the Western press, through open channels, I'm just saying there were such reports, that Xi might even step down soon because of the problems surrounding him. And the problems could get much worse. Now I'm getting to the main point. If the Americans impose the same tariffs as they did on the Indians. And if they do, Xi Jinping definitely won't be able to hold on. That's why Xi Jinping is now personally deeply interested in not spoiling relations with the US and Europe. Because almost all Chinese goods go to the US and Europe. This market is simply incomparable. Not even remotely comparable to the Russian market. Really, there's just nothing to talk about here. That's why this is a historic moment right now. If Trump, who has already raised the axe over Xi Jinping, actually brings it down, meaning that Xi will have to tell Putin enough, that will be the turning point from which everything will move forward. And now I want to say the most important thing. Xi Jinping congratulated Volodymyr Zelensky and the people of Ukraine on Independence Day.
For the first time.
You have indeed said the key word. China has never ever done anything like this before. So what does this mean now? China is a country of signs and hints. Nothing there happens by accident. You have to read into every single gesture there. There's a lot behind it. It might seem like, well, he congratulated them, everyone did. Well, for the first time, good for him. It's the first time. No, this is a sign. This is a sign that the Chinese might tell the Russians, enough. Especially since the objectives haven't been achieved. I can imagine how angry Xi is at Putin. After all, before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Putin was in China, the Olympics were taking place there, and of course Putin told Xi that he was about to invade Ukraine. Of course, Xi was very pleased, because if things had gone the way Putin told him, that they would take all of Ukraine in 3 days or a month, everything would be fine, and the West wouldn't interfere. Xi immediately thinks, what is Xi's main goal? To take back Taiwan, back into the fold. And Xi understood that if Putin succeeded in Ukraine and the West didn't intervene, then a lightning-fast Chinese attack on Taiwan would have the same effect. The West wouldn't interfere and everything would be fine. That's why he placed great hopes on Putin. But Putin got bogged down. He just got stuck. The war has been going on for more than 3.5 years. No results have been achieved. Come on, a scrap of territory is not a result. The result is, do you take all of Ukraine for yourself or not? Especially considering that in the last 3 years, well, almost 3 years, from November 2022 to now, the Russians have managed to capture less than 1% of Ukrainian territory, while losing, this really takes some talent, over 1 million people killed and wounded. And what about the blow to the economy and to everything else in general? You really have to try hard to pull that off. That's why, in Xi Jinping's eyes, Putin is definitely a loser. Of course he is. He hasn't managed to achieve anything. Well, one Avdiivka more, one Avdiivka less, so to speak. And what does it even mean that they captured Avdiivka or Bakhmut? Well, everything there is destroyed. It's just devastation. It's ruins. But Russia itself has plenty of its own Avdiivkas and Bakhmuts. Half the country looks like that. So where's the breakthrough? Where is it? Where is the geopolitical conquest? There isn't one. In other words, the war has been nothing but a failure for Russia. There have been no successes. And for Ukraine, it's already a victory because Ukraine has preserved its statehood. So what do I think? I think that, well, from the 3rd to the 7th of this month, I believe President Putin is indeed visiting China, and we will certainly see one significant thing or another unfold during this important visit.
Dmitry Chesnokov has already made a statement that Russia has a negative view of discussions in Europe about the possibility of European military presence on Ukrainian territory. This is again another red line that Russia will not cross. Further compromises on Ukraine will be discussed privately. We believe that it would not be useful to talk about any details in public without regard for the general context. That is, again, complete, let's say, dissonance.
Dasha. These statements, now Lavrov's, now Peskov's, Trump clearly said yesterday, they're showing off. These statements mean absolutely nothing. What are they made for? These are statements for the American side, but we are going for this. Raising the stakes, but we will not go for this, and we will not go for that. Let's do this. You make concessions to us, we make concessions to you. This is a negotiation process that's being conducted, including in the public sphere. Who is Lavrov? And who is Peskov anyway? He's a nobody. Absolutely. Absolutely nobody. So their words are just background noise. I wouldn't pay any attention to it at all. Putin's words? Yeah, I would pay attention to those, but even then, not always. But these guys, they're total nobodies. They don't even matter.
Dmitry, I believe the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine literally made a statement just yesterday that President Zelensky is ready to meet with Putin anywhere in the world. I think even...
We talk about this all the time. Volodymyr Zelensky says this all the time. And Trump and the American administration hear these statements too. We are ready for peace. We are ready to meet. We are ready. Trump even said, let Zelensky meet with Putin. Then we say, we are ready. Where is that bastard? Where is he? And he's not ready, he's just not there.
Dmitry, you and I talked about how the meeting should happen by the end of August, but it still hasn't happened. Today is the 27th. It's unlikely it will happen before the 1st.
Of course, it's not going to happen anymore. We understand that. We understand that Putin doesn't want to meet because he's not ready for this meeting. And Zelensky clearly says, I'm ready anytime, anywhere. Well, except for Moscow, obviously. What, is he trying to mock us or something?
I think Minsk is out of the question too.
Yes, and Minsk as well, of course. That's it. It's all up to Putin, but I repeat, right now we have a historic visit. I'm neither downplaying nor exaggerating a historic visit by Putin to China. And I believe that whether peace comes closer or not will depend on this visit.
Dmitry, this is also a very important point. Trump, as you say, is a player. At first he says one thing and then he says, but I never said that. And now essentially there's the meeting in Alaska. Trump presented it as a way to organize a peace summit, Zelensky, Trump, Putin, to bring it closer, but there is no summit. So Trump comes out and says, well, you see, Putin doesn't want to meet with Zelensky because he doesn't like him. In other words, Trump is saying that he even accepts this, that he's been completely sidelined. Well, I don't know, but all of this, Dmitry, no matter what you call it, it just looks...
Yes. Never. Neither Trump nor the American elite will ever allow Putin to mock the most powerful country in the world and its president. Never.
Dmitry, what's going on?
No, don't rush. Don't rush. He'll make it to the end, and the end won't be long. He'll walk his path to the end. He'll say, listen, Trump has devoted a lot of time. By the way, his country is called the United States of America. He's the president there, elected by the American people. Look at how much time he's spending on Ukraine, and he'll never back out of it. By the way, I want to say, according to everyone I trust in Washington, they said never. Trump will not get off this track. It's impossible. That's it. There's no way back. He's already there. For him, backing out equals defeat. He will never allow that. Moreover, the overwhelming majority of Republicans, thanks to whom Trump became president, fully support Ukraine. And the vast majority of Americans too, including Democrats, fully support Ukraine. Trump can't ignore this. He will pay attention to it. What is he doing now? He is telling the whole world, and first and foremost Americans, look, I am doing everything to achieve peace. I've already met Putin halfway. I even applauded him, stood and waited for him, and our brave American soldiers rolled out the red carpet and bowed, which of course was perceived negatively all over the world. But I did all this for the sake of peace. For the sake of peace, I can do this. But look, he won't go for it. He's deceiving me. Ah, he's deceiving me? Well, now I'm absolutely going to demonstrate the immense power and significant influence of the United States of America. Look, Vladimir Putin undoubtedly knows that he does not have much time remaining, and he certainly cannot continue doing this indefinitely, playing these dangerous and manipulative games. He can't do this. He can't. Trump understands this. Putin understands this. And we're not fools either. We understand this too. I'll say it again. The visit to China is going to be decisive now. If Xi Jinping doesn't order Putin to leave, to get out of this war, I have no doubt that Trump will go all out on him, destroy the economy, just wipe it out, especially since there's really nothing left to destroy. And he'll tell the Chinese, if you stick up for him, you'll be destroyed too.
Dmitry, so you predict the potential introduction of additional sanctions after President Putin's significant visit to Beijing?
Dasha, making predictions is a thankless task because Mr. Trump personally sometimes makes predictions and they don't come true, and it looks at the very least funny. You see, I criticize him too. Yes, and listen, I'm very sober about this. I have hope for him. It just seems to me that I understand him and I have hope for him. Maybe I'm a foolish person. I admit it. I'm not categorical, mind you. I admit that sometimes I can be naive, sometimes I can be foolish. I admit that, yes. That happens sometimes, unfortunately. What can you do? We are people, not gods, as the classic writer Alexander Korotkov wrote in his work. But I still believe that the process of Trump making up his mind once he does will not take long. Right now, yes, with the Chinese, I associate with Putin's visit to China, I have certain expectations. Either yes or no. Everything should be decided there.
Dmitry Ilyich, well, I think Trump made a statement that he's also ready to meet with Xi. Well, obviously, most likely he won't fly to Beijing because...
Well, not now, Dasha, you see, that's what he said. So he's ready, yes, he's ready. He's also making gestures towards Xi. One moment he threatens, the next he makes gestures of goodwill. Well, it's just a primitive, simple game of good cop, bad cop. Only here, you don't need two people for this game. You don't need two cops. Trump does it all by himself. Sometimes he's the good guy, sometimes he's the bad guy. That's it. That's how he operates. It's a good approach, by the way. A good method. Just what you need. Very effective.
Dmitry Ilyich, a security plan for Ukraine has already emerged according to the Financial Times. It will consist of 3 lines of defense. Everything will start with the creation of a demilitarized zone, which will be patrolled by neutral peacekeepers acceptable to both Kyiv and Moscow. Quote, Ukrainian forces are behind her. Next up are NATO's armed and trained forces. They would hold a fortified border, and then a European-led deterrent force backed by the US would provide a 3rd line of defense deeper inside Ukraine, the Financial Times reports.
Dasha, my opinion.
So,
I don't believe all these publications of plans. There are a lot of deliberate leaks going on to test how the public will react to this. I'll only believe one thing. When I see a finalized plan on paper, approved by Ukraine, Russia, the US, and Western and European countries, then I'll believe it. For now, it's just talk. Remember? Like, we're ready to send in troops. Macron said it, Starmer said it. Then it's, we're not ready and our troops will never be in Ukraine. Then again, we're ready. You can clearly see how everything is constantly changing and evolving. So let's patiently wait for a final and definitive decision to be made.
Or maybe we won't wait, as Dmitry Ilyich says, right?
Or maybe we will.
Like Trump says, will I impose sanctions or not? Will the war end or not?
Yes.
NATO impotent or not impotent? The choice is yours. Dmitry Ilyich, Bild. Russia's summer offensive in Ukraine has failed. Julian Röpke, a military observer for the publication, writes that despite Russia's fastest offensive pace since last November, over the 3 summer months, the occupiers managed to capture only 0.3% of Ukrainian territory. That's about 1,800 square kilometers. Most of the objectives that Moscow set for the offensive from April to August 2025 remain unfulfilled. And now about the Russian army's ability to continue waging war. Dmitry Ilyich.
Well, look, this also suggests that in theory, the war should be coming to an end. Why did Putin drag things out before? He had a plan for a summer offensive. What did he want? What was he after? To grab more territory, more and more land. He's quite an idiot, of course. What do these territories give him? He can't conquer all of Ukraine. These territories, let me repeat, he already has plenty of such areas in Russia, abandoned, destroyed, lying in ruins. What is he going to do with them? What is he going to do with Avdiivka or Bakhmut, for example? Well, what? He can't do anything with Mariupol either. He destroyed it himself, and now he can't do anything about it. So, of course, summer is ending. That's it. Summer is over, basically. You see what the weather is like? Soon it will start raining, then autumn will come. After summer, in case anyone forgot, autumn always comes. In autumn, the rains begin, the roads turn to mud, everything gets bogged down. It's not suitable for an offensive. So once again, everything will get bogged down. Neither war nor peace, so to speak. Postpone the next offensive until spring or until winter. But for him, that's as good as death. The economy is simply going down the drain. Trump won't be joking around. Now the Indians will stop buying oil. Well, then the Chinese. What happens next? What will the Russians live on? What will they live on? That's a sure way to run into internal upheaval in Russia. Because, you see, it is absolutely essential that you are fully aware of what has consistently and historically transpired in that particular location. They had an unspoken agreement between the state and the citizens. Well, citizens is putting it strongly. Are they really citizens? It was more like between the population. The state told the people, here's your bread, your sausage, here's a little money, especially in Moscow and Leningrad. Here are some other perks for you as well. But we handle politics and the big money. We don't meddle with your sausage, we give it to you. So don't meddle in our politics or our money. That was the unspoken sausage pact between the authorities and the people. But it's already been broken. It started to break down when they began taking people away for the war. They announced mobilization back in September of 2022. That was already a violation of the pact. We never agreed to that. Why should we have to go somewhere to die? For what reason? No one attacked us. So if shortages start, look, there are already gasoline shortages. In several regions, there's no gasoline at all. There's no gasoline in occupied Crimea. So there are already problems with gasoline. And before that, there were problems with YouTube, with the internet. Now they're jamming the internet all over Russia. There's practically no mobile internet. These are already breaches of unwritten agreements. This is already an assault on the inalienable rights of every individual person there in Russia. Because as long as I have sausage and bread, as long as I have a car on a mortgage, well, there aren't even mortgages anymore. As long as I can fill it up with gas, as long as I have internet and can, watch some movies, then go ahead and fight your war. I don't care about it. Go fight over there in Ukraine. That's your war. Whether I like it or not, it doesn't matter to me. I don't want to think about it at all. I'm not interested in politics, as many of them say. In fact, the overwhelming majority. We're not interested in politics. But politics has already started knocking on their door and invading their personal space, their personal territory. And now trouble is not far off. And Putin, of course, understands this. Well, he should understand it. That's why it's important for him now, as I understand it, either to seize some territory and claim victory, or to retreat and say that we've already won. Again, after Xi's visit, everything will become more or less clear.
Dmitry, well, obviously I can't help but discuss with you how well our trusty drones performed. Russia has lost 17% of its oil refinery capacity due to drone strikes. As a result, the fuel crisis continues to intensify. In recent days, more than 10 refineries have come under attack. As a result, the economy has lost 17% of its oil refining capacity. And that's 1.1 million barrels per day. This means that a number of major plants have completely halted production. Specifically, the Novokubishevsky, Novoshakhtinsky, Saratovsky, Volgogradsky, Syzransky refineries, Novatek in Ust-Luga, which processes gas condensate, fuel oil, and half of the capacity at the Ryazan refinery have all been shut down. And Unitia, as well as the Druzhba oil pipeline, are also out of commission.
Dasha, what's truly frightening for Russians isn't that these refineries have been hit. They eventually repair them. It takes a month, sometimes several months, but they do restore them. The real fear is something else. The frightening thing is that it's impossible to fully protect such facilities with air defense systems. Russia is a very large, geographically dispersed country. Where can they get enough air defense systems? They simply don't have them, especially since, as we know, all the air defense systems are concentrated around Moscow, around Putin's residences across the country, and around the Crimean Bridge. Where can they get that many air defense systems? They simply don't exist in sufficient numbers. That's why they understand that Ukraine is constantly improving its weaponry, drones, missiles. They realize that now there are missiles as well. And there are plenty of missiles, all kinds, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, a menu to suit any taste, any choice. It's simply a gourmet menu. And they understand that if things don't work out well with a peace agreement, these missiles will simply start flying across Russia, and there's nothing they can do about them. They'll continue to destroy the economy. And drones will keep destroying oil refineries, of course. That's why this realization is frightening for them, because they've understood that the war has come to their territory. It's pushing in more and more, and soon they won't be able to defend themselves even in Siberia, beyond Siberia, or in the Far East. Because we've seen sabotage against ships in Vladivostok as well. And our security service of Ukraine works very inventively. But Operation Web, let me tell you, after the war, both Hollywood and non-Hollywood will be making feature films about Operation Web. It's a brilliant story. Of course, yes, not everything worked out for us. The original plan was much broader. But what we did manage to accomplish was enough to create such a stunning effect. It's hard to even describe. This is outstanding work, truly outstanding. Operation Web will go down in the history of the world's intelligence services for the level of its concept and the quality of its execution. That's why in Russia they understand very well that it's best not to anger Ukraine and not to anger the West. Because if you really make the West angry, some very interesting actions might start to happen. I actually quite like the way Finland and I truly believe Estonia are currently approaching the protection of their national borders. Right now, they are very seriously and actively developing a comprehensive system to meticulously create extensive artificial swamps along the entire expansive borderline, which is a significant undertaking. Can you imagine, before they used to drain swamps, and now they're creating artificial swamps so that if Russian tanks or Russian equipment or Russian armed forces try to invade, they take this very seriously, so that all of them get stuck in the swamps and sink there. That's something, isn't it?
Dmitry, Skabiva has already written that they will attack Estonia because supposedly Estonia is preparing to attack Russia, so Russia needs to deliver a preemptive strike. In my opinion, European intelligence and analysts have written that the next war will be a war between Russia and the Baltic countries. Here you are. Skabiva says that Estonia is preparing an attack.
Dasha, Skabiva wrote it incorrectly. Skabiv wrote because Skabiv is actually a man. It's a hermaphrodite, in case you didn't know. Yes. And Popov is a woman. That's how it is over there. Well, I actually picture Skabiv with a whip like a capo guard from a fascist concentration camp. It's a freak show, really. And look at Solovyov. Just look at what's happening to him. Do you see that only a third of Solovyov is left?
No, I just don't watch him.
Well, I do check in on him sometimes. I keep an eye on him.
Mitic, take the temperature of the room. As Yuri Borisovich says, you need to check in to take the temperature of the room.
Yeah, stick a thermometer up their ass, take the temperature of the room, and...
Mitic, but you do understand that according to their logic, they think Ukraine attacked and they're just defending themselves, so they didn't attack us either. So if that's what they're saying, then next they'll attack Estonia.
It's amazing Putin recently said we haven't attacked anyone. They attacked us.
Of course.
Amazing. Well done.
That's why I'm saying I feel like Estonia is next, because if even Skabiva, and as I understand it, she gets her talking points from the presidential administration, is saying this.
Dasha, do you want to know my opinion? My opinion.
Always.
Kazakhstan, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Finland, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, and other countries should thank Ukraine for the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces have bled the Russian war machine dry, leaving it with nothing to attack the aforementioned countries. The Russians, they can theoretically bomb, yes, with missiles and drones, they can bomb, but on the ground, well, they're already running out of donkeys. They're running out of donkeys and mules. They have no armored vehicles, no soldiers. The disabled are already going on assaults. There are no soldiers. So yes, they can bomb. Bomb, yes. I really doubt they'll go in on the ground. They have nothing to do it with, no one to do it with.
Dmitry, regarding the Flamingo missile, I would like you to comment on it.
Sorry, Dasha. But I am truly sorry, Dasha. If they were to bomb Estonia or Finland, they would be absolutely done for, completely finished. That's why I don't believe in it either.
Dmitry, to be honest, I'm not sure they're done for. I'm so negative about the capabilities of the North Atlantic Alliance, and I think their consultations will drag on for several months, and they'll just keep expressing deep concern and all that, you know? Just like now, Trump has been imposing sanctions for more than a year, right? That's exactly how they'll be, just sitting around and discussing things.
Trump has only been president for 7 months. Come on, really?
But he was talking about sanctions even before that, and he wanted to meet with Putin even before he became president. He understood perfectly well his opinion on all this, you know. Therefore, as long as Trump introduces sanctions, they will continue to consult. I'm generally afraid to imagine that if Russia attacks one of the NATO countries, then NATO will simply shake. They are completely incapable. Dmitry, you are very...
Dasha, another time, another time. Ukraine did not waver, and NATO will not waver. NATO is equipped with first-class equipment. What are you saying? Well, you can't compare it to Russia. That's real power. It just seems that way. Again, it just seems that's real power. America in general is power, power, power.
Dmitry, do you know what they call NATO? No action, talks only. Which translates as no action, just talk. I 100% agree with every word. Dmitry, and to wrap up, of course, this is very important. The Flamingo missiles. A few warm words because, well, it's just brilliant. A cruise missile with a range of 3,000 kilometers.
Well, a pink flamingo in the rays of the sunset is just like your blouse. If Philip Kirkorov were in my place, he would have jumped on you because you're wearing a pink blouse. Do you know what's happening to him, by the way, to Kirkorov? He's dying from constant overdoses. Yes, he has constant drug overdoses and his health, his life is in serious danger. That's why you shouldn't be a fascist. You shouldn't support fascist regimes. It all comes back around.
Dmitry, do you really think Kirkorov is a drug addict?
No, he's not just a drug addict. He's a complete junkie. Calling him a drug addict is putting it mildly. He's a professional in that field. He has terrible overdoses. He's constantly out of it. Does he just collapse? Why did he lose so much weight? It's not Ozempic, it's drugs. And it's all really, really, really bad over there. You know, I have sources there in the show business scene from back in the day. He was already practically at death's door. They barely managed to revive him. So the situation is tough for him. But I don't feel sorry for any of them. Everyone who spoke out against Ukraine, I don't feel sorry for any of them. Let them burn in a bright flame, starting with their leader, Putin. And as for the flamingo, the pink flamingo in the rays of the sunset, listen, I want to tell you, that's not our greatest achievement. Besides flamingos, we have many other interesting birds. And Russia, of course, knows this because we have plenty of traitors too, unfortunately. They report to them about what Ukraine has. Ukraine already has a lot. So, of course, Russia knows that if missile strikes on Ukraine continue, Ukraine will start striking Russia with missiles. Let them make their choice.
Dmitry, at the end of our stream, you always say something very optimistic. Our audience really loves and appreciates you for that. I ask that for the finale, you breathe some optimism into our civil society, into our worthy, wonderful people.
Dasha, I take my words seriously and what I say. I will repeat once again what I said at the beginning of our program. Opinions are divided. Some say that peace is near, that everything will be over very soon. Others say, and I mean people who know what they're talking about, others say no, there will be no peace, there will be war, and a long one. I try to balance between these 2 points of view, and I don't lean toward either one, because it could go either way. Let's not relax, let's not let our guard down. The war is ongoing, and we are at war. And it's very important, of course, to watch what happens in Beijing during the talks between Putin and Xi. In fact, it's not even the talks themselves that matter most, but the outcome, what Putin will bring back from China. Will Trump be able to persuade Xi to convince Putin to end the war? That's how I would frame our expectations.
Exactly 1 week from now, it will be September 3rd. The calendar has turned.
I'll go ahead and turn the calendar. Yes, I will.
On September 3rd, Dmitry Ilyich and I will meet and we'll have plenty to talk about. Friends, Please like this video and in the comments write a few kind words in support of Ukraine and the armed forces of Ukraine. Let us know where you're watching us from. The audience is widespread and I always leave hearts. Subscribe to the YouTube channels of Dmitry Gordon, Olesya Basman, and to my channel Dasha Shastliva. We're almost at 800,000. I'm very grateful to you, the well-known journalist Dmitry Gordon. Dmitry Ilyich, thank you very much and see you next week.
Thank you, Dasha. Let's hope for good news.